Okay, joined now by Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Alex, thanks for joining us as usual.
Thanks for having me, dude. Great to be with you.
So this is a big story we've got. It's an important story. It shows you how far down the Orwellian rabbit hole we've gone. But I first want to start to say that when I read your story, I was stunned to learn. I did not know, stunned to learn that Vermont had a Republican governor. Now, explain to me first, before we even begin, how un-Republican a Republican do you have to be actually be elected governor of Vermont? I mean, how many ways would you have to have betrayed Republican politics to actually become the governor of Vermont?
Yeah, it's the same thing that we have in Massachusetts too. We've got another rhino there, Governor Baker, and they're both very, very far to the left. I mean, in any other normal state, they would be considered Democrats for sure. Not even conservative Democrats; they'd be liberal Democrats. But unfortunately, the nature of politics in some of these states, Massachusetts and Vermont, are two obvious examples. That to be a Democrat is basically to be a full-blown open Marxist, right? Bernie Sanders is an interesting example of that. Caucuses with the Democrats, and of course he was elected from the state of Vermont. So basically, when you think of a Republican from Vermont, think liberal Democrat from any normal state.
Right, and that's Phil Scott, the governor, the so-called Republican governor of Vermont, and behaving very much like a left-wing autocrat. What has he told us? He literally came out over the week before Thanksgiving and said, we're going to start grilling young students when they get back to school after Thanksgiving break. We're going to find out from your kids just how many people you had, how many cars were in the driveway, how many guests you had for Thanksgiving. And if we find out from the mouths of your children that you have violated state ordinances or state mandates, they're not really laws, we're coming after you.
Yep. It's something like out of a bad science fiction movie, right? Or something out of the DDR, the communist German regime, where they're literally using children to spy on their parents and to ensure compliance with these bizarre government recommendations and edicts and decrees and all the rest of it. It really doesn't even seem like America anymore. But he said it openly on Twitter. He's like, hey, we're going to use the school system, the Vermont Education Agency, they call it, to find out from your children whether you obeyed, whether you went and traveled to see family, whether you met with people outside of your household during Thanksgiving. And if we find out that you did, your children will not be allowed to come to school. You'll have to do virtual school. You're going to have to take a coronavirus test and all the rest of it.
Look at that tweet from the twit, Governor Phil Scott. Unfortunately, we know that some families will still get together, and the schools have asked for help. To me, that may be the most freaky, creepy, Orwellian aspect of all of this. The schools went to the governor and said, use your authority with our kids to use them to spy on moms and dads. The schools came to the governor and asked the governor's help in creating a system where little children are encouraged and rewarded for outing their parents for having gatherings of family on Thanksgiving Day.
The same thing we have seen from totalitarian governments everywhere. This is what the Chinese communists did. This is what the National Socialists, the Nazis in Germany did, right? Use the children to spy on the parents, to turn on the parents, to tell the government what the parents have been doing, whether they're guilty of any thought crime. How dare you meet with your family for Thanksgiving in defiance of your overlords, right? This is just, they're taking it to a whole nother level with this. And every American, not just people in Vermont, should be outraged that this is happening in our country.
And again, and a Republican shall lead them. It is pretty staggering when you think about this, Alex. And, you and I have talked many times about what was going to happen in this election cycle, and that if there wasn't just enough to put Trump back in power, they really don't have anything stopping them now. It's all going to come down to Georgia. And assuming that they behave in Georgia with the Senate races the way they did with the general election, you're looking at a Senate swung back to the Democrats. This is after the break here. We're going to take a short break and come right back. I want to talk about what's going to happen with a Democrat-controlled Congress, Senate when it comes to education. Anticipate a little bit about what Biden might do, and anticipate a little bit about what's coming with education. If we're seeing this now, you and I both know that what's coming down the tracks here is going to be alarmingly more dangerous. Back again with Alex Newman, our international correspondent. And we talked before the break about this really disturbing situation in Vermont, where the so-called Republican Governor Phil Scott is partnering with schools to get children, little school children, to out their parents, to get kids to talk, to confess to the school administrators if mommy had too many friends over for Thanksgiving, if daddy and mommy had too many family members eat and meet a family meal together. And so this is actually happening, and this is, we haven't even really begun the age of Biden yet. We know that Joe Biden, the only names we've heard from Joe Biden as possible secretaries of education were the heads of 2 teachers' unions. So you're going to literally put now a teachers' union boss in charge of the Department of Education. It's safe to say that every single move back to sanity made under the Trump administration is going to be eradicated from day one.
Yeah, I'll start off by putting in a caveat. I am not yet convinced that Biden will ever see the inside of the White House. And we'll have to see what happens with that. I think there are still several paths to victory for Trump. But if a nightmare scenario, he does get inaugurated, I think we can expect a cataclysm when it comes to education that would make what we've seen before, including the Common Core under Obama, look very mild and tame by comparison. Now, with that said, there is a Moab coming, mother of all bombs, coming to expose one of the major teachers' unions. And if this information gets out, I don't know that they will be able to recover to the point where they could have one of their people take over the Department of Education. But Biden's been pretty clear in saying that, even before talk of Biden, the government school system, under the direction from the feds, were acting as little intelligence agencies collecting information on families. We've talked about it on this show many times, Duke. They send out these CDC surveys. How does your daddy talk to your mommy? What kind of food do you have in the refrigerator? Do your parents smoke? Do they drink? Do they take illegal drugs? Right? I mean, this is like intelligence gathering, using children to rat on their parents. And of course, this all goes into these big databases. And they say, oh, it's anonymized. No, it's not, right? Of course, they know who is who. But we can expect that to dramatically accelerate. And I've done a very significant investigation into where the education system is going right now, Duke, and I'll have more on that in the weeks to come. But they are moving increasingly to sideline teachers, to bring in artificial intelligence and algorithms to get all these kids basically staring at their device all day. Teachers might stay on as kind of like facilitators, glorified babysitters, but they're moving into a techno-Orwellian future for education that I think is going to shock people to the core once they see what's coming.
Well, technology allows global classrooms. These will no longer be under American jurisdiction sooner or later, right? This will be all ceded to a bigger, more corporate globalism. But give us you got to give us a little tease. You can't talk about the mother of all bombs against teachers' unions without just giving us a little tease of what that might be. What kind of corruption are you suggesting is about to be unveiled about some of our teacher unions?
Well, I'll say this. There was an insider who had access to a lot of information regarding one of the major teacher unions, and that information is now being prepared, and it will be released hopefully in the not-too-distant future in a major way, and it is documented with video and other sources. It's going to be a very interesting time.
So let me ask you this, Alex, and I don't doubt that your information is correct, and I'm sure you and I and normal, everyday, patriotic Christian Americans will be outraged. But when was the last time an educrat was punished or paid a price for any of this? You go back through the Common Core era, everything you and I said, Alex, came true. Even facilitators for teachers, which is coming down the road, radical sex education, everything we said was going to happen is here. We were laughed at. We were told, we were said we were conspiracy theorists, we're lunatic wingnuts. And now that everything we said happened, who's paid a single price? In fact, everybody who's participated in scamming the American people, lying to the American people, going around due process and constitutional norms and due elections to create this new federal monster of education, all illegally, has paid no price for this. So let's say that you do expose something really bad about the public school teachers unions. Who's going to punish them? Who's going to hold them accountable?
Yep. To be clear, I'm not even a small player in this expose that will be coming. I know of it. I was involved in a very minor way. But it's going to be exciting, and this I don't think they will be able to sweep under the rug, because we're talking about actual criminal activity here that is documented. You're right. And we saw the same thing with the spying on Trump, right? Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. I figured at least they'd let the low-level guys fall on their swords. They're still running around free. But at some point, it becomes too much. I think the American people are disgusted, and I expect we're going to see some things changing in the days ahead.
I hope you're exactly right, because if the Democrats stole an election and nobody really seems to care, I hope that somebody might be concerned about a student, a teachers union problem, but seems relatively small comparatively. We're dark days ahead, it seems, unless something radical happens. We appreciate your time, Alex. Again, we'll talk to you next week. Hey guys, most of you know that our little Dr. Duke show is being hidden and demonetized by the creepy crawlers at YouTube and Facebook. Sadly, this impacts our long-term ability to produce the kind of quality show that you've gotten used to. So we've decided to tackle the problem by launching our own new Patriot Club. Yes, for 99 tax-deductible dollars once a year, 99, you will not only keep our show going, but we'll ship you this fabulous stainless steel tumbler, etched with the American flag and the words, "Freedom never tasted so good." Visit patriotclub.us and become a Patriot member today. That's patriotclub.us to support our show and to drink from the font of freedom.